Hello and welcome to Quilt Addicts Anonymous. I'm Stephanie Soebbing. Today we're going to be chatting with Sarah Gordon, who is the designer of Forage, the collection we use for this month's Stashin' with Stephanie. And she designed that for FIGO Fabrics, which is the modern arm of Northcott Fabrics, which is a little bit more well known in the quilting world. But FIGO is absolutely fantastic. We use them a lot. And we're going to talk with her today about her inspirations, her career trajectory as a graphic designer, which started out in fashion and then eventually went her own way and started doing other more independent things like designing the fabulous collection that we have for us today. Now, I will tell you that we are mostly sold out of Forage. We're going to see if we can get any more from FIGO, but this is just a really good reason for you guys to sign up for Stashin' with Stephanie, because they already all got 10 fat quarters of this month's collection, plus they got first dibs on getting extra fabric so they could turn their bundles into a quilt, and almost everything was sold out before we released the video to everybody else on our email list and our YouTube channel. So they loved it and they bought it up, and there just is not that much left for everybody else. So if you like getting fabric, which who doesn't, but specifically modern fabric that is all designed to go together, we send you 10 fat quarters a month for $29.99 plus shipping, and then you get first dibs on getting additional fabric for whatever you want to do it with. But you can also take the pattern that we designed, which is the pattern we designed to go with this and was specifically inspired by the fabric, and I put that together every month. You get that free pattern as part of your membership. You can get additional fabric to turn your bundle into a kit to be able to make whatever we have created. You get first dibs on that, so you can get it before everybody else, and it's sold out. And then also you get access to our entire pattern library of Stashin' with Stephanie patterns. You can get those for free. It is almost $300 worth of patterns that you get when you sign up. So that alone is super worth it. So go check it out over at shop.quiltaddictsanonymous.com. It's called Stashin' with Stephanie. If you sign up before the end of the month, you will get your first collection in June. Yes, next month is June. Around June 20th, we will ship that out to you. If you sign up in June, you will not get your first collection until July 20th. So if you see this video and it's already June, you can still sign up, but you're going to have to wait a little bit longer to get your fabric, because we've got to wait and see how many people sign up, how many people want bundles, and then we prepare that exact amount so that we've got the most left over for you guys to buy and finish your kits and all that fun stuff. So anyway, go check that out, shop.quiltaddictsanonymous.com. All right, let's get into our chat with Sarah Gordon. Well, thanks so much for taking some time out of your day and finding a quiet moment, which I know is a challenge when you're a mom and you're working from home in a pandemic. So welcome, Sarah.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk to you about this.
So we have you on today because you designed Forage, which we featured in our Stashin' with Stephanie Club this month. But it is absolutely beautiful. And you've done other collections too, right?
I did another collection for FIGO prior to Forage, which was the Sea Botanica collection.
So what was it like transitioning from the art that you typically do, which looks like prints and some wallpaper, to fabric and textile?
Well, designing specifically for quilting fabric was very new to me, because that they had a size restriction. I'm used to working much larger, and the repeats are smaller. I think they're 8 by 8 inches, perhaps. So that was new to me, and but FIGO were amazing to work with. They really gave me a lot of advice and help in figuring out how many colors they need for the fabric, and how the different prints should coordinate with the really little tiny kind of what we call in textiles no print prints,
like these little guys.
Yeah, so the mostly solid color with just like 1 or 2 colors on top. So it was really nice to see how a collection of different prints would come together and coordinate in one product like a quilt. So they really helped me with that.
It looks like you've done some other textile work too, beyond quilting.
I've been working in the textile field for since I graduated college. So I've worked with so many different companies in different markets, mostly fashion, That's where I started out, and I've kind of transitioned into more home interiors and furnishing fabrics more recently, which I really, really love.
So what are some of the big differences between designing for fashion and designing for home, and then now quilting, which is home but in a different way because it's more of an unfinished good? Because home, you know, you're going to pick a print and you're going to use it mostly in a large way for some sort of, you know, pillow or drapery or something. But quilting, you know, we're going to cut it up into tiny little pieces and put it back together. So it's a little different application.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, the big difference is obviously with fashion, it's you're wearing the print. So it really has to be something that someone is going to want to put, like, you know, right next to their skin and their face. So not all prints work well to wear. I would say in interiors, I feel like there's a little bit more freedom because it's more artistic. It's something that you're going to be looking at in the home as opposed to kind of walking around wearing on your body.
What are your different challenges when you're looking at, okay, I'm going to design for quilting versus fashion or home decor?
Interiors have become more closely tied to fashion. So a lot of interiors I feel like a lot of the trends start out in fashion in terms of color trends and imagery trends. And then I feel like interiors kind of follow on from that. So when I was working in fashion, we would take our inspiration directly from the catwalks every season. And that kind of gets filtered down into the more mass market stores. So a lot of it starts out and it's kind of, you know, really quirky or, you know, so new that people are wondering how they're going to wear it. And then it gets filtered down into the stores. And I feel like home interiors then follow those trends maybe, you know, a year or so later.
Do you have more freedom when it comes to quilting? Because I imagine this is not something that would go so well on a garment with your bugs.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely think what people choose to wear on their bodies for fashion is more limited. I don't know if someone would want to walk around with beetles all over their dress. But for interiors, I feel like it can get a little bit more, you know, unusual, and definitely have more unusual elements mixed in, which I really like. I mean, I like definitely more kind of quirky, you know, unexpected imagery. You're
really known for mixing vibrant prints. When you look at your gallery of prints that are available, they're all very bright colors, and it looks like you use acrylic often.
I mostly use gouache, actually.
Okay.
And I've started to use acrylic because I'm starting to do more original paintings for interiors and for wall art. And so I'm looking for paints that are more permanent for that. So I've started to use acrylics, but I actually really love gouache.
It's a more vibrant watercolor, right?
Yeah, it's a more opaque watercolor, and the pigments are really rich and saturated, which I love.
So how did you come to develop your personal sense of how you use color? Because like that has been like the number one comment that we've received on the collection of Forage is the use of color within it. And as you can see, we chose to design using a fade, going from light to dark with the two colorways, and it plays beautifully. So how did you come to develop that sense for yourself?
I'm not really sure exactly how it developed. I've been told, and it's really interesting to hear people say that I have a specific kind of color look when I design. I'll have colleagues that I worked with years and years ago say, oh yeah, you always used to use those colors in your prints. And I never really thought about that, but I think you naturally gravitate towards certain colors. So I think it's a case of using the colors that I really love, that I have kind of a personal feel for. I did work as a colorist years ago for a fashion company, and that was really kind of useful in my in learning how to use color, where I would have to tweak the colors on the fabrics and the yarns and for each season and say, 20% more blue and 10% more red, and get the colors exactly right for this company. And I think that really helped develop my use of color.
So were you taking garments and designs that were sort of capsule that existed already and then just changing it up to match each season?
Well, it was for a fashion company that they would produce their fabrics for their collection every season. And so then when they would get their, fabric samples in, I would have to adjust it for the factories or for the, to dye yarns and even leathers. And it was an interesting process and quite technical. But I think it really served me well in understanding colors and, red tones or blue tones and warm tones and cool tones. And it was a good experience.
So how did your career evolve from working within the fashion industry? It sounds like being employed by a company to ultimately sort of finding your own way, and now it looks like you do freelance for the majority of your work.
I do freelance now, and then obviously work on my own collection. But when I graduated from college, from university, I got offered a job at a textile studio in New York and went out there to try it out. And stayed there for many years. And when I left that textile studio, I did go into fashion for a while. I worked for a couple of fashion companies and then decided to, with a couple of partners, set up a textile studio of our own. And so we worked with many companies. We would produce a collection of seasonal prints and sell them to, so many different fashion companies. They all buy prints from textile studios. So we were in that market for a long time. And when I left that, or when we closed that company, it was actually when I was pregnant with my second son. And I decided that I wanted to do my own thing and just have more freedom, not have partners and not have a big business. And then I just work, then I can kind of pick and choose the clients that I really enjoy working with. I would say my time is really limited right now, so I do have to be a little bit selective and not do as many as I used to.
So you went from being in the city to moving to the other end of the country, right?
Right, yeah. So now I live on a really lovely island off the coast of Seattle, which is just, the pace is slow, and we live in a very kind of natural environment, a couple of blocks from the beach and just surrounded by nature, which is just perfect.
And I know that florals inspire a lot of people. Obviously, we see florals a lot in fabric and many different applications, but how has that influenced you going from being in a very busy city to, being in such a slower environment, more of a natural place? I saw you are spending time in your garden. It looks like you always have fresh flowers around from your Instagram feed. How has that changed sort of that well of creativity you can pull from?
I think it's actually really had a big effect, moving to a, more natural environment. I mean, we lived in Manhattan and Brooklyn. So New York City is a very big change to this kind of environment. And I mean, I'm constantly inspired, and we're outside a lot. I mean, I have a 3-year-old, so we spend, every day outside taking walks and just kind of looking at our surroundings. And it really does have a big influence on what I do. I mean, I am constantly inspired. We're picking flowers wherever we go, weeds, looking at insects. And I'm really grateful that I have that inspiration just kind of right there.
That's wonderful that you were able to make that big change. What was going through your mind when you're like, I have this large business, but I want something completely different in a completely different location? Is it just, knowing that you're going to be a mom of two now and you wanted to sort of take control of your life and your balance?
Yeah, exactly that. I mean, I really did want more control over my work-life balance. I also have a 13-year-old, so I have a big age gap between my children. So when my first son was born, we were living in Brooklyn and I was commuting to Manhattan right from when he was 3 months old. So it was a different kind of lifestyle and pretty stressful, took a lot of energy, and I just wanted to change with my second son, just really slow down and enjoy it more, and just be more creative in general, rather than kind of trying to produce designs specifically for more mass market companies. I wanted to get more creative, and I really do like working with the clients that give me a little bit more freedom and allow me to kind of work in my own style as opposed to following exactly what trends they're looking for. And so I'm lucky in that respect that I have some really good clients that we have a good creative relationship. And FIGO is one of them. They really did allow me to kind of go with what I wanted to do, and they were really encouraging, which I appreciate.
I feel like that's a really good transition to talk about some of the prints that you created for FIGO. This bug one is really fun. I feel like some of our customers are like, ooh, bugs, and then some of them are like, ooh, bugs. And so, it has a different reaction. But when we used it in the prints, you cut things up smaller, and you just really appreciate the use of color in the bugs. Let me pull out the other one. And I think they're really pretty. Like, as far as bugs go, these are about the sophisticated bugs that you're going to find in quilting fabric. So where did this inspiration come from?
Well, I love insects. I've always had an interest in insects since I was a child. So I've always been fascinated by them. And I wasn't, I was a little apprehensive about the beetle print because normally I'll mix insects in with like pretty florals. So they're kind of hidden in there.
And there's that too in other prints.
Yeah, so I'm glad that they've been received well. I really like them. And yeah, it's literally just, and especially now, with my 3-year-old, we're always out bug hunting. So yeah, I do like beetles.
This must be a boy thing to do. My daughter wants nothing to do them.
I think I was destined to have boys.
All right, so there's been some debate in the comment section on what fruit this is. Yeah, you want to solve it?
They are passion fruit, but there are figs in the other print, in the main botanical print. So I know people were trying to decide if they were figs or passion fruit.
I love that we both were trolling each other's social media prior to the interview. But yes, I thought this is really pretty. This is one of those great examples of the print that doesn't have a lot of color, but that really elevates and ties in very well with everything else, I think.
Yeah, I kind of had, I wanted that to be like a very simple graphic print to mix in with the more, ornate botanical prints in the collection. And so I wanted it to have an almost geometric feel to it, with the repetition. I love it.
I think it's really fun. I love this one too. Anything that's got a butterfly on it. I have girls, and one of them is too young to talk, but the other one is obsessed with butterflies, and so these are one of my favorites. I think the floral with the butterfly and the more mixing of prints, this is a really great focal, I think.
This actually, the nasturtium is my favorite print in the collection. Yeah, I really like it. In general, I like painting plants that have, very kind of tangled like stems or vines with a lot of movement. And so I really like that print because of the movement in it specifically. Do you also really love your houseplants? I do, but I'm not very good at keeping them alive. I follow this one person on YouTube, and she has like literally hundreds of plants in her apartment in New York. And she's like, I've killed a lot to learn how to keep them alive. So I get it. I'm a bit negligent. they kind of struggle on their own.
The strong survive in my house, but I did water them all last night. It took a whole hour, which gives you an idea of how many. It's a bit obsessive, but it's super fun. But let's see. Oh, this is like, I feel like the hero print. I feel like we had to unfold this one. This one's so pretty. Is this sort of one of your hero prints? Like where did this inspiration come from? Did this exist somewhere, or was this designed specifically for the collection?
It was designed specifically for the collection. I can actually show you the original paintings if you...
Sure.
So that was the original painting.
That's beautiful.
One of them. Yeah. And so they were done very specifically for this collection. And it was really, you know, in my head, I was really wanting to create like a wild, kind of overgrown garden, you know, where you could just imagine kind of walking through and like plucking figs and, you know, picking flowers for tea, and then watching all the insects kind of buzz around. And it was supposed to be a very kind of like, you know, you kind of slow down, you walk through this wild garden and a little bit dreamy. That was the idea behind it.
So when you were putting that together, you did your original painting, and then what's your process from going from that to creating eventually the repeat with limited color options for the fabric?
So I paint everything by hand on paper, and then I scan it into Photoshop, and that's where I start to separate the colors, which is actually quite a long process because you can imagine with watercolor or gouache, there's a lot of tones in there, and we have to simplify the tones and flatten the color out. So I, you know, spend a lot of time with each motif cleaning up the edges and flattening out the color so that they can be separated, or I can change the colors. And then obviously creating the layout for the repeat. So it's a process, but I do enjoy the whole process, from painting to working on it digitally.
So for one like this, is this something where you would paint it in one colorway and then change everything digitally once you've flattened it all out?
Exactly, yeah. So I paint with the colors that I want to paint with. I don't give, you know, too much thought to it. And then when it's in Photoshop is where I really start to kind of fine tune the colorways, the color palettes, and create, you know, the contrasting or the coordinating prints with the colorways.
And your big one that the artwork inspired, those are prints that are available on your website, right?
So I haven't done a wall art print from this collection yet. I have used some of the elements in other prints, but I haven't actually done, you know, the original painting I haven't done as a print, but I am thinking about that.
I was looking at yours, and I really need to get into getting more like real art prints in my home. Like I look around and I'm just like this, like whenever I talk with someone who is an illustrator and also has done fabric, I just look at the portfolios. I'm like, this is just so stunning and beautiful, and you know, why, like, and affordable. So why would you go buy something at like a big box store when you can get like original art that's a print that's signed by the designer, and it's just, it's stunning and beautiful, and not everybody's going to have it.
It's true, and I do think, you know, art for the home in general has become much more accessible, you know, with everything being available online, and there are so many great artists out there doing really affordable artwork. So yeah, I do like having artwork on my walls.
So what else are you working on right now?
Right now I'm trying to work on a new series of paintings, and it's really for myself, and I actually am going to be part of an art show next spring, so I'm going to be having original paintings in the art show, so I'm kind of working towards that, and we'll be hopefully doing some new prints for the people that like to buy wall art. So those will be on my website in a few months.
Is that the one that's behind you in the corner? Your little inspiration there?
This one here?
Yes.
Yeah, that's actually me figuring out color palettes. So it was just a nice process that I wanted to do, like little mini, kind of canvases almost, and just really working with one central color palette and kind of figuring out coordinating color groups from that. So yeah, that is kind of leading up to my new paintings. And then I will be working with my regular clients that I have too. So that's ongoing.
So is that kind of your process to kind of audition colors first? And are you thinking of, like, when you were creating those shapes, are you thinking also of might be a final shape, or are you really just playing and experimenting and really just going for color at that point?
So these color studies behind me were definitely, more a way for me to just play more and experiment more. When I feel like when you go from one series of artwork to a new series of artwork, it's good to just take a little break and just loosen up a little bit and just, have fun with it. So that's what I was doing. And, it's inspiring then to see how the different colors come together, and kind of puts me on the right track for painting new imagery, which is what I've started to do now.
How has your art world been impacted by the pandemic? Like, is it starting to come back? Because I imagine, like, being at a gallery is a big part of being able to survive as an artist, at least for your art shows. Or is your career mostly, you have a brief from a client, you fulfill it, and that's how you put bread on the table?
It's interesting. I feel like it hasn't impacted me that much because of the changes that I made when I had my son, when I had my baby. So I had already started working from home at that point, and kind of cutting down on some of the markets that I was working in, and just kind of keeping a few key clients, which is continued. And it's fine because we've always worked remotely anyway together. And then I feel like actually it kind of opened up some areas for me, because so many people are stuck at home and they are buying everything online rather than going into galleries or going to trade shows. So that worked okay. And I feel like a lot of people suddenly got very interested in their homes and their environments, and started to collect art more. So I wouldn't say it's been booming, but it's been steady, and I don't feel that I've been affected that much, other than my kids being at home and having less time to work.
I fully understand that situation. We talked earlier, I have a first grader and a baby that was born 6 weeks before the country shut down. So
wow.
It was a year. It still is challenging.
Challenging with a 2-year-old. I can't imagine, having a new baby. And then
at the beginning it was easier because she would sleep a lot and in many situations. So I could have her next to me and be working and she would just be out. But now it's much more challenging because she's mobile. And there are times of the day, like a half hour before nap time, where nobody's getting anything done, and that you just deal with it. So it is what it is. No, my husband, who works full time with the business with me, and of course we have a great staff who helps fulfill everything. But grandparents all live 3+ hours away, and she's won't go to them either because it's pandemic, and she just didn't get as much time with them. So she's with us 100% of the time, and it's a challenge, but it's one that you work with. And it's, like you, I went back to work at 6 weeks with my first daughter. So while it's been incredibly challenging, the gift of the time that you get with them, of being with them for so long, is something that I really am glad to have, even though it has made many other things much more challenging. I'm sure you probably are the same.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, it's amazing how you adapt, and you kind of just get through it. But there's definitely been a lot of, joyful things that have come out of just having to be together, and just slowing down and not having as many options and not being so overscheduled has been pretty nice, actually.
I'm sure. Well, it's good you made the move when you did. You were all ready.
Yeah, I feel like I was already set up pretty well for having to be at home. So
Yes, for sure. Well, thank you very much for taking some time out to meet with me. I know you had an hour and a half of you time this week, and you spent at least half an hour with me, so I will let you get to the rest of your day, as I know that it's very lovely to have those pockets of moments when you're always with your family otherwise, or trying to work, one of the two.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your time too. And I really appreciate hearing, people's response to the Forage collection.
They love this one. It was good.
I love the quilt.
Thank you.
You have in the background there. I aim to make quilts one day.
Have you sewn at all?
I'm not really very much of a crafter. I would like to, or a sewer. I would really like to. I mean, I love quilts. I've been kind of collecting vintage ones for a while. I love the history behind them and the stories behind them, and I really love them. So
I will say sometimes it's very easy to tell the designers who are not sewers themselves, because they don't understand that you need the big prints and then also, the not so big prints where we were talking about that don't have a lot going on to help make these pop. And the color fade, like that is evenly throughout both colorways. That is next level. So I think you did a fabulous job with this collection, and you thought about it in a way that the quilters will use it, and to be able to do that without actually having quilting experience, I think is very, very, speaks very highly of your ability to design.
Thank you. That's really nice to hear.
All right. Well, thanks again, and I will let you get on with your day.
Okay. Have a nice day.
You too. Thanks so much for watching our chat with Sarah Gordon. I really enjoyed chatting with her. I think she's very interesting, and I totally relate to trying to get everything done when you in the middle of a pandemic, which is super challenging, and having little ones around. So hats off to her for creating some beautiful artwork in the midst of all of that. But the best way to make sure you get fabulous fabrics like this every month is to join Stashin' with Stephanie. We've heard plenty about it already today, but basically $29.99 a month plus shipping gets you 10 fat quarters, whole bunch of discounts, a pattern that is designed and inspired by that month's fabric, first dibs on getting more, and in this case, our Stashin' with Stephanie members bought up almost everything before we released it to our regular email list and YouTube channel. So definitely a good club to be a part of, and you can check that out and join over at shop.quiltaddictsanonymous.com. We'll link it in the video description below and in the eye above. Thanks so much, and until next time, happy quilting.